Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the show that is worrying whether we are now just a gruesome twosome and not a terrific three anymore. Because we have had contact. Oh, anyway, sorry. Before I get ahead of myself, my name is Tosin. I am the host of the show, and I am based in the UK in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight, as always, is Sharon.
Hello.
And not joining us on the Isle of Wight is Sharon, who we have had contact with. We had contact from him, but he is in Thailand. He's going around on the back of motorcycle taxis. He's having a whale of a time, and he's not coming back anytime soon.
No.
He's not coming back anytime soon. Although, knowing sure for what he is, when we eventually do speak to him again, he will probably be an expert on Thai cinema. And
because he does go and watch it, even if it's dubbed or in the wrong language or whatever. He'll go and watch it anyway. So
yep, he'll watch it.
He's seen more films than we have.
Yeah, probably. To see things in Thai cinemas, assuming that they're open, because God knows what's happening around the world with this new
I've
Omicron.
not been up to date with my John Hopkins University stuff. They've changed their layout, so I stopped looking at it as frequently.
Yeah, and also the fact is, I mean, you hope that there's going to be a way to carry on and sort of like some of the things that we've gotten back, obviously for us, cinema, that we've gotten back. We hope that there's a way to carry on without having to shut it down again. Although I don't have that much faith in the British people or the British public, or is it that I do have faith in the British public to just not do things that would work? Essentially, I do not have faith in the British public to help stop the spread of Omicron.
No.
So I'm thinking that if cinemas shut down because of something called Omicron, this would sound even more like an apocalyptic end times movie than the first one did. The first lockdown
Omicron has taken us down.
Omicron has taken us down. Optimus Prime has shown up to help us stop Omicron. But yes, anyway, until that time happens when cinemas will shut down again, which with my biggest optimist hat on, I kind of just think that that's going to happen. So let's just enjoy it while we have it. But until that time, what have you seen this week, Sharon?
At the cinema, I went to see Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City, I think it's called.
Welcome to Raccoon City.
It's got a subtitle thingy, hasn't it? So it's Resident Evil. Blah.
Welcome to Raccoon City. To differentiate this from all the other Resident Evils that have been made, starring Milla Jovovich.
Yes, it's a whole new reimagining of it. And I've also seen on Sky Cinema a film called Riders of Justice.
Riders of Justice. Raccoon City, which is what I'm calling that for short, and Riders of Justice. And in cinemas, I saw the film Boxing Day, which is a Christmas movie. Yeah, sort of like a Christmas movie directed by a starring Ameen. He was the lead in Idris Elba's directorial debut called Yardi, and he was in Kidulthood and stuff. So he's going to the point where he can actually make a directorial debut. So it's pretty cool. Boxing Day. And at home, I saw essentially this week what I've done is that I've been going to see genre films that are not usually known for highlighting black people. But this time around are highlighting black people.
Yeah, you got.
So I got a Christmas movie and a Western. So Christmas movie, Boxing Day, and a Western, The Harder They Fall, on Netflix. So with the best will in the world, I do not think I can call Resident Evil a big release of the week. So by default, that makes Boxing Day the bigger release of the week. Just by default, that's where it works. It makes that the bigger release of the week. So let's kick off with Boxing Day. I'm going to kick off with Boxing Day and say what that's about. So as I said, this is a Christmas movie, and I'm going to come straight from the bat and say it is nothing major. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything like that. It is probably a cut above the Hallmark movies, and it's definitely a cut above the Hallmark movie, and definitely all those ones that you see on Channel 5 and that Netflix have started making ad infinitum. So it's definitely a cut above those. but but the difference now is that it focuses on a black family. It focuses on a black, and essentially the entire principal cast for this is black. The idea
and
being
British, isn't it? Black British.
Black British. Well, not all of them are British because
Not all.
not all of them are British because the idea is that hang on a second. Let me set up a timer because when I was editing this thing last week, I was like, oh man, we spoke for a long time about some of these films. It's like we just didn't stop talking. We just went off on one. All right, so the idea is that you have a character called Melvin, and it kicks off with Melvin, and he is he used to be a soap actor. He moved to America and he's become an author. So the film kicks off, he's written his first book and he's on the promotional trail for the first book. You get to meet him and you meet his American girlfriend. So Melvin is a black British guy who's moved over to America. He has an American girlfriend who he proposes to, and when he proposes to her, the first thing she does is throw up. Even though she arrives back at the LA pad and there's roses on the floor, there's a band playing behind him, there's a massive sign saying marry me, he's singing into a microphone, he has a glass of champagne for her, says will you marry me, and then she throws up. And it turns out that she's pregnant, but she hasn't told him because he has always expressed that he doesn't want kids. Now, his book publicist says, look, you're from London and I've booked you into a big show in London to go promote the book. He's like, I don't want to go back to London. I do not want to go back to London. Definitely not at Christmas, because obviously it's Christmas, therefore there's drama happening back home with his family and all that. He goes back to London. He takes his girlfriend in tow, and because he's asked her to marry him, she's like, look, I want to meet your parents. I want to meet your family. And so you get to meet this, when they go back to London, you get to meet the family. You get to see this whole thing. You get to see his sister, his younger brother, his mom. And there's, when I talk about this being like, a Christmas movie that just happens to have a majority black cast, there's elements of something like Love Actually in this. Even in the trailer for this, there's a bit that very obviously apes Love Actually, where pretty much everybody has their own subplots, or everybody has their own thing that going on. The big one for him is that his sister is now working as the assistant to a music star. She has a Christmas #1, and she used to be his girlfriend. So it's his ex-girlfriend. When he escaped London, he dumped her. And it's kind of like unresolved, and the whole family is like, okay, what the hell was that all about? When are you going to come back? And there's this whole thing where he's bringing back a fiancé, but there's this unresolved stuff with his ex-girlfriend that everybody goes, oh my God, you're an idiot. Why did you dump her? She's gorgeous. She was the perfect person for you. And so that's playing in the whole film. But you also have the fact that his mum, so the reason he left home had something to do with his mum and dad breaking up. And his mum has, for the last 2 years, they don't know that she's been in a relationship or anything like that, but she now has a white boyfriend. And that has some sort of issues with that. And then his younger brother has a girl that he's trying to get. And so there's a little bit of Love Actually in it, in that you have all these different love stories going up and down the whole place. But the focus is very much on, like, Black British. It's very much on Black British. So I quite like this. I thought it was well done, even though I felt it had way too much on its mind. And there are scenes in this film where you feel like, I feel like they had a much longer film and there was so much he had to say and so much he wanted to explore that he put everything into the film, and then they realized that the film is just way too long. And so they just like chopping scenes and cutting them up, because there's one particular scene where somebody goes to a hotel room to call somebody else, and then they leave the hotel room and the next shot they're by a swimming pool. So I'm thinking, okay, so you're in a hotel. You went to the person's room, called them from the hotel room. They went down the lift into the swimming pool, sat down for 2 minutes to have a chat, and somebody got up and walked away again. Don't worry, I'm still here. And and it's things like that I'm like, why on earth would you do that? And it just made me feel like there were longer stories.
They chopped out a few bits just to make the cuts.
They chopped out a few bits, but also I think it was a film that just had way too much. It's not just sort of like a straightforward Christmas movie, because you have I mean, the love triangle at the center of it, that would be enough to carry a film. But then everybody has their own little thing that's going on over the side, and this is going on, and then there's the fact about his father actually feels like he messed up when he left his mother, and his mother has this whole thing with a white boyfriend, and is trying to talk about why bringing a white boyfriend home to a black family would be a problem, and then there's things because they're a family of Jamaican heritage, and then there's little bits of like Jamaican heritage, and then they're talking about there's all these scenes where they have like the family back home. So they have the family back home, and his ex-girlfriend, she's her mother's white, her dad's Nigerian, and there's all these things in there that you can see they're just being hinted at. And I think the scenes where they have the family together are the scenes that work the best in the film. Those are the scenes where, being black myself, I was watching them going, ha ha ha, yeah, that's right. The fact that it's a silly thing, right? It's a silly thing, but it's kind of like, when you talk about representation, there's a bit where they have a close-up of a plate of plantain, and a plate of fried plantain, which is something that I think across definitely West Africa and definitely across the Caribbean is like a staple dish. And I was just kind of like, I have never seen a plate of plantain that big on a cinema screen before in my life. And it's little things like that make you go, huh, maybe there is something to this representation thing. Because right now I'm feeling seen that they have a massive plate of plantain up on the screen. And so those scenes where they have all the family together, those are the scenes that sing. They're the scenes that fly back and forth, where they're talking about the difference between Africans and Caribbeans and all that kind of stuff, and the kind of needle that is in there, and everybody's just joshing about. And those films, they feel like you are peeking in, or you're eavesdropping in on an actual family Christmas, and I think those bits are brilliant. But those bits, they don't really join up to other things that happen in the film, and then there's things that happen that is, why is this happening? Because reasons. Like, in the love triangle, the women, the first time they meet, they don't realize who each of them are, and they get on quite well. But then they become mean and just start sniping at each other because they're after the same man. And I'm kind of like, what? Why did you do that? And then there's one particular incident that happens in the film that I think is just stupid. I'm like, why would you do that? The only reason I'm beginning to sound like Sharon here, but it's kind of like, I'm like, why would you do that? The only reason you would do that is to create some drama for the final third of the film, which no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't ring true.
Yeah,
so
I hate it.
Yeah, don't need it. But it's because it's almost as if like, oh, well, we've seen Christmas movies, and Christmas movies must do this, and the other. Therefore, we must do this, and the other, but with a black cast. And so I love the representation bit of it. I love the family scenes in it. The plot itself and the way it holds together, you're kind of like, meh, seen it before. It's nothing much to write home about. But the fact that it's representing an element of Christmas that you don't get to see, like because I think the family are actually Jehovah's Witnesses as well, so they don't celebrate holidays. So there's a lot that they're trying to get done in this film, but and it could be seen through the lens of they're just trying to show a real window on the world, but plot wise it's a bit woolly and it's a bit all over the place. And time for Tosin's obscure peeve. Tosin's obscure peeve that usually has to do with Nigerians. So the fact is, the character that is the ex-girlfriend character who's become a big music star is played by Leanne Pinnock of Little Mix fame. She's essentially the black one in Little Mix, and her name is Georgia, and I will pronounce this last name properly because nobody in the film does. Folorunsho. That is the way you say it, Folorunsho. But the first couple of times they say this name in the film, I'm like, what the hell?
What are you saying? Yeah.
No, I actually thought it was a name of South American origin because they pronounced it like Folorinze. And I'm like, what do you mean Folorinze? Folorinze? What? I was like, what is that? What kind of name is that? Then I realized, oh my God, they're saying Folorunsho. About the third time they said it, I was like, they're saying Folorunsho. Her dad's supposed to be Nigerian. Then later on, they show her dad, and her dad is supposed to be Nigerian. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. You got so many things right. you got so many things right. It looks like you got all the Jamaican stuff right. You could have found one person to pronounce the last name right. I mean, even if you just had a scene where the dad turned around and go, it's not Folorinze, it's Folorunsho. Even if you had one scene like that, I was just kind of like, that, because that is what a Yoruba man would do. He would correct everybody who's pronouncing his name wrong. But that was my one real peeve about it. But all in all, I enjoyed it. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It's a cut above for your Christmas movies. So That is, even though I put a timer on, I'm pretty sure. I definitely went over because I had to get my pet peeve rant in there about something. But Boxing Day, I think that it would be good. Let's say, like, for instance, someone like Sharon. Sharon likes seeing different cultures that are not his own. I think he would like it from that point of view. But as a Christmas movie, yeah, it's a good Christmas movie. It's a good Christmas movie, and it's not as cynical as a Hallmark movie. So we now leave cinema and we go over to. First of all, any questions about that, Sharon?
No.
Okay.
No. I've seen the trailer, so I've got an idea of what it was about.
Yeah, it's one of those films where you've seen the trailer, you've pretty much seen the film. You you pretty much know how it's going to play out. So, right. Now we go over to, was this Sky Cinema? You said you saw something called Riders of
Cinema,
Justice.
yeah. Sky Cinema.
So Sky Cinema, Riders of Justice. Tell us what it's all about.
Riders of Justice is a Danish film.
Ooh.
And
oh yeah, I remember now.
The main actor is Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh. Yes, I remember now. For anybody listening to this, who hasn't listened to any of our shows before, Sharon has a definite Mads Mikkelsen thing.
It's a thing. It happens. So it's quite tricky to actually explain the film because it's got a couple of themes running through it.
Yeah.
But one of the main themes of the story, which draws all the characters together, is the idea of coincidence. Now, is a coincidence a coincidence, or is it a sequence of events that are essentially predictable, and therefore it's not fate, it's mathematics. Okay. And so there's two camps in this film. There's Mads Mikkelsen is a serving officer in the Danish army, and we presume it's Afghanistan. You see him in somewhere sort of hot with sort of desert camo on at the beginning of the film. And his wife and his daughter are at home in Denmark. And then there is another group of these three friends who are all scientists. And they specialize in different fields. One of them is like a genius hacker. One of these is all about the maths. And he's worked out this algorithm that has taken, like 2 years to work out an algorithm that predicts seemingly random events, but you can actually calculate, these outcomes. And his idea is that by looking at these past events and looking for trends in them, you can then predict the future of some trends. Yep. Because you have enough. Often you don't have enough evidence to see where something came from, but the more evidence you can gather, the more clearly you can see paths. And if you can see paths, then you can start predicting. And that doesn't go down well with his bosses. So he's actually fired. And so these two groups of people, Mads Mikkelsen's family and these three groups of men, are drawn together by this seemingly random event. And it all starts off with the theft of a bicycle. And this bicycle is stolen, and because this bicycle is stolen, Mads Mikkelsen and his daughter, Mads' daughter and his wife are then going to have to drive instead of her riding her bike because it's been stolen. And then their car breaks down, so they decide to go have a day in the city and then go on the train. And at the same time as they go on the train, the man who's just lost his job because he's worked out this algorithm that his bosses essentially think is useless, he's on the same train. And also travelling on the same train is a chap who's in witness protection, testifying against a local gang called the Riders of Justice. And this train crashes, killing a number of people. It's not a spoiler, but one of whom is Mads' wife. And the only reason she's in one of the fatal seats is our scientist guy gives up his seat because he's been taught as a young boy, you always give your seat up to a woman. So he was sat down, he saw a woman comes in, said, "Oh, please take my seat." She's therefore killed and he survives. Now, because of his brain works mathematically, he's saying these events aren't random. There is a pattern. We just have to work out the pattern. And he believes he's worked out the pattern, that because this guy is testifying against this gang, then obviously the gang are responsible for creating this train crash to make it look like an accident. And therefore, these people are responsible for this act that killed Mads' wife. So he goes to Mads and says, "I know who killed your wife because of this event. The police don't believe me. We've got to do something." And that sets Mads on this trail of vengeance.
Taken. I've got a very, very particular set of skills. How do you say that in Danish?
In Danish, is yeah. But and then so he has this sort of weird group of chums around him. He has like these three scientists who are sort of completely crazy in their own different ways, because they've all got all the baggage. He ends up with a rent boy. Don't ask me how, and his teenage daughter and his teenage daughter's boyfriend. So between them, they sort of become this sort of strange mixture of people. And meanwhile, sort of, yeah, they try to seek to take down this sort of biker gang.
Okay, so what's the philosophical / thriller mix in this?
It's interesting actually, because it takes it, I think, a step higher than your average, shoot everyone with no consequences.
Yeah.
It does look at, because one of the themes running through this is actually trauma and how you deal with trauma.
Yeah.
And each of the people in their own different way have their own different traumas that they're experiencing and how they work through it. Yeah. And that's like some people, like through Shakespeare, it's violent catharsis, they call it. It's like that release of that tension through violence. And that's Mads's character. And other characters have different ways where they've processed trauma. And so they take the violence is done in like everyone is getting shot all over the place. And there's humor in it. There's a really black humor. But in the heart of it is this sort of thinking, well, actually, we have all these things, it's fun and it looks great using violence to solve all our problems, but there are consequences. And so it doesn't shy away from that either. So in that regard, it had good action. Mads does his thing, lock and load and all that. So he does his thing as only he can. If you ask me.
Yeah, well,
so it works. To me, it worked.
Well, the thing about him is that because he has done action hero, I mean, most noticeably in Polar. Yeah, so he has that action. He doesn't do it often, but also I think if this was just like a straight up action movie, I think I would be a bit disappointed because it's Danish. You expect something a bit different and a bit weird from Denmark. So yeah. Okay, no. So that's good. How many stars would you give it?
I'd give it a 4, actually. Ooh. I thought it was well constructed. It's very sweary, and it's always a bit disconcerting when you're reading them swearing, because one of them's almost like Tourette's-y in his outburst, and so you're reading, you're thinking, because I'm one of these people who almost like self-censors things, where I sort of, if I see a word that I don't want to read or say, I will just substitute an inoffensive word for it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would choose the most ridiculous word I can think of to take all that anger out. So sometimes I will go, flibbity gibbet, instead of blah 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 blah, because to me I find that funny. So I think if you just replace those like really offensive words, if you just put something else in there, then you think this is how ridiculous it probably does sound if you really swear a lot. And so I would just be reading flibbity gibbet and Jiminy Cricket and all that. All that, but so it's quite difficult, but it's very strange. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny and in places, really sad in other places, and poignant in a way that you wouldn't expect from an action film. So I thought it did really well, and I thought it's just really well done.
All right.
And it wasn't as predictable as you probably might think it would be, given the fact that it's an action thriller with Mads Mikkelsen in his gun-toting vest. So I would say it's a 4.
Good stuff. Sorry. Breaking news. I have just gotten an email from Odeon Cinemas talking about important government guidelines updates. Literally came through. You might have heard the sound. It literally came through as...
the ping.
Yeah, you might have heard
I've been contacted by Cineworld to say, wear your mask.
Yeah, in line with government...
Anyway.
Same here. In line with government guidelines, from 10th of December, face coverings will be mandatory in cinemas in England, except for when you're eating or drinking. Please note, you're not required to provide your COVID status while visiting cinemas in England. The safety and well-being of our guests and cinema teams remains our priority. You can find out more about safety measures on the Safer Cinemas page. We hope to see you in one of our cinemas soon. So that's
more or less word for word what Cineworld sent to me this afternoon.
They're hoping, and I hope that their hope is... Well, I hope the hope is not misplaced, even though let me put it this way, they are more enthusiastic, they are more optimistic than I am, but probably because they have to, because their business relies on it.
Yeah.
So,
but I've been wearing I've got in the habit though. If I'm upright, I wear a mask. If I'm inside a building, and if I'm if I'm outside, if I can reach out my arms and I can touch anyone, I wear a mask.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm like mask safe anyway.
I essentially go with the whole thing of if I'm in an area where I can control how far away I am from people, then so if I go into the shop, every now and then I'll forget my mask and I won't freak out about it. I'll just go in there and I'll do my shopping and I'll get out of there as soon as possible because I can control how far away you are from me. But if I'm in a cinema where things might be swirling around and people are going to be, I'm like, I'm putting this mask on. I don't care if none of you are. I'm putting my mask on. So for me, nothing will change until the cinemas get shut. I'm sorry. I would rather just prepare for disappointment and have it not happen than hope and then have my hopes dashed. But thank you very much for that. 4 stars for a film starring Mads Mikkelsen. I actually think if we went back through all the films that we have rated, and if we decided, okay, you know what, let's try and find out which actor or actress has the highest hit rate, has the best quality films. I think Mads Mikkelsen will be pretty high up there.
Yeah,
I think
even things like Polar, I've probably thought, I'll give it 4.
Yeah, because usually if a film has Mads Mikkelsen in it, you are the one who has reviewed it, and the other one is going to say, yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, yeah, he's all right, yeah.
So he was in that one. What was the one where they could hear that you can hear people's voice, their voice?
Oh, the one with all the boys, and there was only one girl there.
Yeah.
Chaos Walking.
Chaos Walking. He was in that. And I think that was probably his lowest rated film I've given him a recent. I think I gave that one a 3, if I remember. He was in that.
Although I'll tell you, there are some films coming up that I personally think are really going to hit his quality rates, and those are the Fantastic Beasts movies. They're going.
He's taken over. Hasn't he taken over one of the major roles?
He's taken over the role of Grindelwald from Johnny Depp. He's taken over the role of Grindelwald, and people are trying. There's this weird discourse online. Or this weird. The narrative is that people are like, oh, the reason the Fantastic Beasts films didn't work is because of Johnny Depp. Yeah, Johnny Depp, he was such a problematic character because his wife, and this, I'm not trying to play down the things that he was accused of with his wife. That's not what I'm trying to play down. I'm trying to play down this argument because I think it's stupid.
That's the courts to decide whether he did or didn't do those things.
Yeah, but it's the argument that people are saying that the reasons the film didn't work is because Johnny Depp was in them. I'm like, no, the films didn't work because they were badly written. they were badly written.
Too darn long.
Yeah, they were too darn long. There was stuff in them that didn't make any sense. And that is why the films didn't work. And I have no hope that that's going to change because it's the same writer, the same directors, and I'm like, the Fantastic Beasts, the first one was all right, the second one was rubbish, and I expect this to carry on. And I think Mads Mikkelsen, hey, if Mads is going to get paid, I am all for it. Pay the man. But I'm not expecting those films to be any good. So let's move back to cinema and let's go to Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which, Sharon, you went to watch because there's nothing else on. So
that was basically it. I had to see something without Shawnee to, pick up the slack.
Yeah, with Sean being in Thailand, swanning around on the back of a tuk-tuk, it's like we had to go pick up the slack and actually go to the cinema.
Because on a week like this, normally I'd go, okay, Sean, you better produce that 5 films that you've seen at some obscure cinema, in the back streets of Bournemouth.
Yeah. So Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. Obviously, Resident Evil based on the video game. And tell us, have they managed to make a video game movie that is worth our time?
Well, I have to say from the get-go, I've only ever played. Well, I've never. To say I played it means I did take hold of the controller for a brief period of time. So that technically counts as playing it, doesn't it? If I actually was holding the controller.
If you've held the controller, if you pressed something on the controller and it corresponded to something happening on the screen, I would say yes, you have played it.
So technically, I have played the game. So it wasn't for very long because I didn't live for very long.
Yeah.
So that my only experience of the game is that sort of minute when I was watching the video game said, "Oh, can I have a go?" And then, "Oh, I've died. Okay, you can have that back now. I don't ever want to play that ever again." So from that experience, that experience did correspond with what I saw on the screen, because the bit I played was when they're wandering around in the mansion. You hear these zombies moaning and groaning. Then you'll have to go like mad and shoot everything.
Yep.
And then the lights will go out. Then you have to try to shoot everything in the dark with flashing lights going on. Or you get like a lighter where you have to light your way. I remember watching that bit and having a go briefly then. So my own experience of the game was replicated on the screen. So that bit was in there. So the rest of it I've got no knowledge about. But from what I gather, you have your characters where they're all introduced. They have is it one of those ones where you have like a little filmy bit at the beginning where you introduce all the characters, then you choose your character?
Yes. For what I can,
like that at the beginning where all these characters pop up and say, "Hey, Jill Valentine," or "Hey, you're Leon, what's his name?" And so all of these characters are actually introduced early on, and they wear the clothes that were reminiscent of the film. So I gather from what my experience, so limited, was this is very much, we love the video game. This is our inspiration, and so they haven't referenced the other films at all.
Yeah, because the other films took another tack where they introduced a fiction. Oh, well, I say a fictional character; they're all fictional. But they introduced a new character that wasn't in the video games, and that character sort of every now and then encountered some weird version of the characters from the video games. Yeah. This is going. No, we are doing the video game stories.
Doing the video game stories. So you have all these characters. You get a little bit of backstory for some of them, and others you don't. And the way they're introduced, it would be like, ta-da! I'm producing a rabbit out of the hat, and this rabbit is this character that who looks like the character that you see on the screen, only they're real. So I get the feeling that whoever the people who are behind the film certainly were using the actual game for their
that's what I hear.
Their
that's
inspiration. What I hear. So it probably unfolds in a similar way that the game would do. So you have like this build up where you get dropped a bit of information like, people are acting Raccoon, the Umbrella Corporation are pulling out of Raccoon City. And they're beginning to shut everything down. The only people left are the poor or the people who are like left behind to mop up the situation. So you've got like a handful of like police serving still. You've got the odd waitress. You've got your poor families, and then you've got like security. But the big bods who actually run Umbrella Corporation have gone, and they've left the affluent parts of town largely deserted, and the poorer parts of the town still largely inhabited.
Yeah.
So one of the characters arrives in the town because her brother's there. I forget her name.
Don't worry.
Something or other, but she's got a brother.
Yeah.
He's a police officer. And she has been in contact. This is set in 1998, so presumably that is the year that the original game was released.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that might be right. Yeah.
She has like this online. I talk about online as if it's like this strange thing that, I was talking to someone and he was saying,
does anybody say World Wide Web at any point?
And so he was saying there's something wrong, they have steadily been poisoning the town, and there's things going on here that you need to be aware of. And then you start to see the hints of maybe like the people start randomly, their eyes start bleeding, and the hair starts falling out, and so you get this build up of, we know bad things are going to happen, and it's happening now. And then one of them, who's sent to spy on the Umbrella Corporation to find out what they've been going on, he's got this hacked text system, like a pager system almost, which was saying, Raccoon City is going to be shut down at this time, so you have to get in, get your stuff, and get out by this point.
Yeah.
So it all builds up to this crescendo of, chaos is unleashed, and then our protagonists are fighting, shooting, screaming, bleeding, and dying through the rest of the film.
Cool. And
they encounter things you would expect to encounter, like the groaning zombie people.
Yep.
Townsfolk going a bit mad. Dogs that don't look very natural. Dobermans that look a little bit.
Oh yeah. That's a Resident Evil thing.
And a couple of mutant-y type people that started off human but have been mutated by some.
Okay, so the two questions. Number one is, does the plot matter? And number 2, how many stars would you give it?
Oh, I don't think the book matters at all. I think it's one of those films because I was thinking, how are they going to wind this up? Because it seems to be so much going on. But I think they're not because they're going to turn it into a franchise, I would imagine, because the way it ends.
Yeah, they'll be hoping to, yeah.
And yeah, I say it was a 3. I'll say it was completely done. It was for what it was, and then I don't think you can probably expect more. You could expect a heck of a lot less than you got. So it's not a very high bar, but what they did, perfectly competently. So it was entertaining. You got the zombies. You had the odd moment of tension where you're thinking, oh, what's going on here? Unexpected death, expected death, and not a lot of humour, but there was enough to keep moving.
Yeah, because I remember watching one of the I hadn't watched any of the original Resident movies, the Mila Jovovich ones, and I remember seeing one of them was probably Afterlife or something like that. I mean, after a while, they just ended up having these subtitles that meant nothing. You had absolutely no idea what film you were watching, and I remember watching them and. No, because I'd heard bad things about them online. I thought, it can't be that bad. So I decided to watch one of them, and it started off and I was like, oh yeah, this is all right. It's the one that starts off with this massive action sequence of a whole bunch of Alices attacking the Umbrella Corporation, and I'm like, oh wow, this is actually a pretty good sequence. And then after that, the film just goes. It's like dropping a lead weight into a pond. And I remember by the time I finished, the only word I could use for the film was risible. I was like, this is just, oh my God, this is terrible.
I did watch a few of those. I mean, I think I tried to watch them in order, but they just started coming thick and fast. And they were like straight to DVD. And I got to the point where I just got lost in it. And I thought, I actually don't know what's going on. I couldn't work out who she really was in the end. I thought, is she real? Is she what is she again?
The plot was inconsequential.
I got lost in it.
I'm surprised they gave them enough money to make 6 films. But hey, that's probably why I don't work in Hollywood, because I cannot abide. Yeah, it's like, no, but that's absolute rubbish. Why are you making more of them? But anyway, so now we go on to a final film on Netflix, and this is actually on Netflix, and this is a film called The Harder They Fall. And I said this is a Western, but with black people, and this is.
There have been a few of those before, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the first ever Western with black people in it, but I think it should kind of tell you the reason why you have to make a Western with black people in it, because this film starts off with a message on screen that says, this story is fictitious, but these people actually existed. So what it's done is kind of like, a bit like Alan Moore did with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where he's gone and he's taken all these different literary characters like Alan Quatermain and Mina Harker, and he's taken them and he's the Invisible Man, and he's put them into he's pushed them in together, and he's taken these characters that already existed and he's put them together and he's made a yarn out of it. Now this has done the same thing, but with actual black cowboys and cowwomen who lived in the Old West, and who were actually alive at that time. So people like Nat Love existed, Rufus Buck existed, and you can go and look up at these people and you can see that they existed, but obviously their real lives bear absolutely no resemblance to what happens in this film. So this, I'm not even sure they were alive at the same time. So this film is kind of like it's kind of like these people were pioneers. It's almost. I think the thesis of this film is just to say, black people existed in the Old West. And it tells you the reason why this one has to, because I remember the first time there was a film made in the 90s by Mario Van Peebles called Posse, and that was the whole thing that was about black cowboys. It was like the black cowboy posse. And I remember watching the film and going, oh wow, someone's imagination is running wild. Look at black cowboys. There were no black people in the Wild West. And that was my thought, because everything I'd seen about the Wild West had been John Wayne movies and Clint Eastwood movies and all those John Ford Westerns and stuff, and none of them had any black people in them. So even up until the time when Unforgiven was made and had Morgan Freeman in it, and I thought, oh yeah, the filmmakers are taking some real artistic license putting a black cowboy in it, and I still think that, generally speaking, most people do not realize that there were black people in the Old West, and that they just think, well, there was slavery, and then the Old West happened, but none of the black people made it there or did anything of note, and then they sort of showed up again in the 1900s or something like that. So I feel so that's why I think the films like this need to exist. As far as the storyline goes, this is just a very stylistic film. It's almost a style over substance kind of thing. I would put it as when you had a John Wayne Western, and you had your Rio Grandes and your Searchers and the ones that they say these are classics of the genres, but then you had some of the lesser John Wayne movies, like the one about four brothers of something or other, that it's just kind of
Sons of Katie Elder.
Yeah, Four Sons of KTLA, that's the one. And it's okay, it's good, but it's kind of like, your standard cowboy movie that you would go see on a Saturday. This falls more into that sort of standard cowboy movie, because everything that happens in it is what you would expect to happen in a Western. Is just that you have black people doing it. So there's a bit where they hold up a train to release somebody from prison. There's a bit where some people have done a heist and some other people go and rob them, they're riding into a canyon or a ravine or something, and these guys are on the shorts, and there's a lot of shots in this that you and Sean, being the Western buffs you are, could probably look at and go, ooh, that's aping that shot from that film. That's aping that shot from that film. And there's bits where I feel like that's what they're doing. I just don't have enough knowledge of Westerns to know what it is that and it's set up where you have these two gangs, and the two gangs almost directly mirror each other. So both gangs have a sharpshooter. Both gangs have a woman in it who probably has something that's going on with the person who's in charge of the gang. So you have Jonathan Majors on one side as Nat Love, and Idris Elba on the other side as Rufus Buck. And it's a pretty straightforward revenge thing, because the film kicks off and somebody comes in, kills this priest and kills a priest and his wife, but leaves their son. And then years later, it leaves the son, but not before scratching something into the son's forehead, so essentially scarring him for life. And then years later, the son grows up, and then the son is looking out and essentially going out to get all the people who killed his parents. That's pretty much the film.
There's standard revenge Western, then, really.
It's a standard revenge Western. But there's things like all the music in this is by black artists from all manners of. There's bits where they go sort of like reggae. There's bits I'm like, a Western with reggae on the soundtrack. Now that's different. There's bits where they go Afrobeat, where they get like Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who is one of my favorite artists, a Nigerian guy, and they have his music's in the trailer. He actually shows up on the soundtrack as well. And it's all these different things that you go, this is a Western. This is stylish. I love the way they're doing this, like bits where they do like, crash zoom, crash zoom, crash zoom. But it's directed by a guy called James Samuel, who also does all the music. And I love all these stylistic things. But when you look at the final thing, you're like, it's a standard Western. Like, when you have these, let me put it this way, it's the kind of Western where somebody's walking along the main street of a town, and as people are coming out of room, and they're just walking down the main, and people are coming out of saloons, and they're just going, shoot, shoot.
Oh, wow.
And you're thinking, hang on a second, you're out in the open.
Why would you do that? Yeah.
There's 15 different people. They should shoot you. Why would you just walk right down the?
Yeah.
why would you just walk straight down the main thoroughfare and just shoot people left and shoot people right? And it's got a great cast. Everybody in it is brilliant, and and there's a little, and they don't shy away from the fact that these people are black. There's a bit where they go to a white town, and almost sort of like very symbolically, the entire town is white. And I mean, the set design is brilliant because the whole town, all the buildings are white. They go into a bank to rob a bank, and it's all white. And I'm like, okay, cool, we get what you're doing here. And even the bad guy in the film, his whole thing of why he's stealing all this money is because he wants to set up a place for black people, because he's like, look, we have a place in this world. So even the bad guy has this kind of vision of, I want to make a better place for black people, and I will kill anybody to get it. So it's a good film, but I think it's pretty standard. It's pretty standard Western fare. Nothing much to write home about. The bigger thing that you would write home about in this film is the style. It's the style, it's the music, the performances, and just how dang cool everybody looks. Just how dang cool everybody looks is what you'd say that. So I really liked it. I would have to give it a 3 out of 5 though, because I can't really give it more than that. I think it's standard Western fare with black people,
Yeah.
which I'm all for. So that gives us a 3. Sharon, what do you think it's been like today? Who do you think has won, Netflix or cinema?
I think Netflix and Chums have won this week.
Netflix and Chums have won this week. This is really simple. This is really simple maths when we only have 4 films. So yeah, really simple maths. So yes, Netflix has won. Thanks obviously to Mads Mikkelsen and your love of Mads Mikkelsen. He has given us the highest quality thing this week with 4. So if we were going to say where to spend your money this week, because you Riders of Justice,
Mads, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just spend it on Mads. Why not spend it on Mads?
Yeah.
I mean, you might not need a close up of a massive plate of plantain in your life, but but I do. But, all right, cool. So until next week, when good. Well, I think next week we're having Spider-Man: No Way Home being released. I think that's on the Wednesday next week. So we
I don't know when is West Side Story out.
Ooh, West Side Story. Oh, I've been hearing things about that. Let's see. West Side Story.
I'm curious about that. I want to, because I'm trying to get my head around it, because all the clips I've seen don't include much of the music. So is it the same music as the previous West Side Story, or have they done something different with the music?
No, it is the same music as the West Side Story.
They've just made it more sort of, I don't know what the right term is.
Gritty, realistic.
It's really realistic and sort of more. They've tried to be a bit more sensitive with the casting, so that if they have got like the
Puerto Ricans are actually played by Hispanic people, if not actual Puerto Ricans. So it's not just white people with fake tan. So
you're darkish, you're do. That
that sort of thing. It is I know it's coming out soon. I've heard good things about it, but I've heard from musical buffs, people who love the original, and they say it doesn't embarrass the original. It's not like remaking The Lion King or something like that.
Yeah, because it used to be my favourite musical. And I have people who love musicals. They do get their favourites that they're sort of waft and wane. At one point, that was my absolute favourite musical, and I had 2 different versions of the soundtrack, and I was more or less word perfect on all of it. My favourite track is actually Boy, Boy, Crazy Boy.
All right, okay.
That's actually my favourite, and G Officer Kropke.
Oh, yeah.
You can have 2 more opposite songs.
West Side Story is out tomorrow.
Okay, so that might be, I was going to round up, using a Western expression, going to round up one of my friends and go and see that. So hopefully that could be this week.
Yes. Okay, cool, yeah. Okay, for me, when it comes to musicals, Singing in the Rain. All the way. Singing in the Rain. It's, and although I do feel like the Sound of Music is a bit transcendent, I've got to be honest with you. But
but my favourite, I used to be Seven Brides for Seven Brothers at one point. That was my favourite musical.
That's good.
So I veer between, my musical taste does change, but I've got these favourites that I would sort of never. Sound of Music, great film. Mads Jane, great. Lots of musicals I love.
Yeah. I hear you on that. I hear in the musical front that there's just a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good musicals. But anyway, until next week, when we shall bring you West Side Story via Sharon, Sharon, and possibly I might have to pull some trickery to go see Spider-Man: No Way Home before we actually speak and before cinemas get shut down. I'm full of the joys of spring right now, but I'm like, oh my god, look at that! It's on all day. Spider-Man: No Way Home. Until next week, when we shall bring you those films. It's a goodbye from me,
and it's a goodbye for me,
and it's like I think it's like Sawadee Krap from Sharon in Thailand. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we'll know whether he's out there for good.
Yeah, we'll know if he's ever coming back.